So you want to live well and grow. Well, in order for us to talk about that, we have to talk about what we do every single day. We need to talk about our habits. Hi guys, welcome back to Rooted Growth. I'm Tiffany, and this is a channel where we look at biblical truth for our everyday lives. We talk about the faith that we believe. We talk about the habits and the actions that we choose based on what we believe, and the fruit that we can see growing in our life based on that as we continue to follow Jesus, not perfectly, but intentionally. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is intentionally choosing habits in our life that's going to grow good things and produce good fruit in us. This channel came out of that verse in Colossians 2, verses 6 and 7, that says, just as you accepted Christ Jesus as your Lord, you must continue to follow him. Let your roots grow down into him, let your lives be built on him, then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. That's a fruit that we get to grow in our life as we're following Jesus. So we want to build good intentional things within us. And unfortunately, a lot of times we don't realize the work that goes on in the background to produce the good fruit that we would like to see. We see other people being successful, and we want that kind of success. But we don't see the unseen work that's going on in the background to produce the end result that we do get to see. We talked about this in some other videos, talked about like the belief tree, and we see what's coming out of it. But we have to go back to the beginning to see what is going to be producing that, right? Like going back to the roots to figure out what is going to produce that fruit in our life. And we have to talk about our habits for us to realize that. A perfect example is you see a boxer in a ring and they win the fight, they win the tournament, whatever. But you don't see every day that they get up before the sun rises to go on that run. You don't see the hours that they put into training before they ever step into that ring. We can see people with things that we want. They have financial freedom, they have a happy marriage, they have they're in great physical shape, they have intimacy with God, they have confidence in their area. We can be confident that success doesn't just happen by accident. Okay, they're not just luckier than the rest of us. It happened by their habits. It's not luck. It's not because of one big decision that they got to be there. The winning, the success that we're seeing is a result of doing those small daily habits over and over, day in, day out, again and again. That's the key to success. That's the key to seeing the fruit we want in our life. And so we're going to look at a story here in the Bible, and it's in Daniel. And so leading up to chapter 6, we see Daniel, who's taken from his home, brought into this new land, and he's been asked to, kind of be presented to the king and show himself worthy, right? And Daniel proves himself over and over again. In fact, 3 different kings. We know often the first one, King Nebuchadnezzar, but there are 2 other kings as well that come along after Nebuchadnezzar who exalt Daniel to a place of authority, of leadership. They gift him many things because he is a man of wisdom, because he's a man of confidence, of authority, and they can see that fruit in his life. And of course, the king is blessed by that, and they exalt him for that. Now, where does that come from, though? Is Daniel just lucky? Did Daniel just happen upon that? I would challenge you guys, that's not the case, right? Of course, there's favor of the Lord here. But if we look into the story, we can see where that's coming from. And so in Daniel 6, verse 10, we read this. When Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with his windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. And so here in the story, we see that Daniel had a habit of praying every single day, 3 times a day, in fact. And this is coming after that story where they made it illegal to pray to anyone that wasn't the king. And so this is the story then where Daniel gets thrown into the lion's den. But Daniel had a habit, and that habit was not so easily shaken. And I would argue that habit is one of the things that led to his success. Yes, there was favor by God, but I bet you that favor from God is rooted in this habit of him praying 3 times a day, every day. Because he has relationship with the Lord, he's following the Lord, he has confidence from the Lord, has direction from the Lord, what to do. He's even getting the ability to interpret these dreams from the kings. He is hearing the Lord, he is acting on that, but he's putting himself in a position to be doing that every single day as he prays. we see that our life can be determined by our habits. You are what you repeatedly do. Pretty sure that's a famous quote by like Aristotle or something. We are what we do every single day, and we're going to see the result of that in our life one way or another. Now, unfortunately, for some of us, our habits are things we're not even aware of. I think it's like anywhere from 50 to 70% of the actions you take every day are unconscious actions that are actually habits. They're ingrained in you. Habits almost like it's almost like your body, your brain doesn't want to use all this energy to have to rethink through a certain thing that you do, and so it has this like automated like switch it turns on, and it like kind of like a shortcut on your phone. It happens just right away. The brain's trying to conserve energy, and so it flips the switch and it has you go into autopilot mode, and it just kind of speeds run this action without using a lot of energy or consciousness for you to do that. Right? That's how you can brush your teeth without having to really think about it. You don't really have to think about how to tie your shoes. You don't really have to think about how to start your car. But once upon a time, those were things you had to be very conscious and aware of, and that was like draining, right? So your body has tried to like expedite this process so it uses less energy. You know, teach a kid how to tie their shoe and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They're using a lot of brain power to figure that out. The first time you had to drive, the first time you had to, like whatever it was, you had to learn for the first time, and that was exhausting. So it's not a defect in us. It's a way I think that God has created us to conserve our energy, to help us to be able to function. Because could you imagine having to like get into every task and use that same amount of mental energy and just exertion to figure out the task it was the first time? That'd be horrible. So it's not bad, but it's something we do have to be aware of, because oftentimes we do things without realizing it. How many of us have it driven home and it's like you start to drive home and then the next thing you know you're in your driveway and you're like, oh, how'd I get here? Your habits took over, right? So we have to be aware of what is happening so that we can hijack this system for good, right? We want to intentionally create good habits, intentionally grow good things within us. And so these habits become like a root system. They're invisible, they're underneath, we don't always see what's going on. And from that, it's going to produce something. And so we can use the system to our advantage to grow good things within us. You know, we can grow some good habits within our life that are going to bring us life, bring us joy, bring us gratitude, bring us confidence, you know, the things that we're looking for. We can use this to our advantage. And our daily habits can keep us rooted to Jesus, like we talked about. Keep us rooted in a way that we're going to produce the things in our life we'd like to see, like our faith growing strong, like overflowing with thankfulness, like being able to hear the Lord and walk in confidence like Daniel did. We can see these things if we intentionally walk in them. Those habits have to become something we do every single day. We have to water those intentionally every single day to see them grow. I read this book. I don't think I have it in here, unfortunately. Great book, definitely recommend. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Great book. And it talks about how our culture is obsessed with hurry and hustle and all that, and how we have to learn how to like be still and rest in the Lord. And one of my favorite examples that just absolutely stuck out to me was the image of a trellis. If you're not sure what a trellis is, I'll put a little picture here, but it's that supporting structure you build for vines. When we were in an Asian country, we saw this a lot because they would grow a type of like squash. So it's a vine plant, and they had all these trellises that just went on forever with these vines growing up over top of them, and then the squash would kind of like hang down underneath the trellis. And it gave the plant the ability to grow and thrive. Without the trellis, what vine plants do is they grow and they start to actually smush themselves because they just start to like grow on top of each other. And so the layers that are underneath are getting cut off from the sun, right? They're being squished, they're being burdened, they're being weighed down. And so it's cutting off the life source from them as well. And they can't produce fruit. And the fruit that is getting produced, right, that is being destroyed because the vines are weighing down on it. And so he uses this image of a trellis to talk about building structure in our life, not to be legalistic, not to like keep a bunch of rules, but to support the life and growth that Jesus wants to bring to us. He wants us to grow. He wants us to produce good fruit. And we aid in that process by building in some good structure into our life to help us to grow well. And the good news is, guys, is you can start small. This is not one big decision that changes your whole life. These are small daily habits and actions you choose every single day. I keep saying actions and habits. Let me be clear here. It's an action every day you choose it until it becomes automated in your brain and you don't have to think about it anymore. Okay, so we have to choose actions and choose them every day until they become programmed into our system. So several years ago, I felt like the Lord had told me to become healthy because he was calling me to go to hard places. And I was very overweight. I was very out of shape and I was not ready to go. And so the Lord was speaking to me about that. And so one of the things I chose to do was to walk, I think 10,000 steps every day is what I did to start with. And that was very hard because that was not a part of my life at that point in my life. That was every day. I had to think about it. I had to make space for it. I had to go out. It was late after dinner and I'm still like in the kitchen doing circles. And I had to be very intentional about the actions I was choosing that day. Today, I don't have to think about it. I really don't. It's a habit. I naturally just get up and move. I naturally just get up and walk. It's a part of my morning routine. It's a part of my afternoon routine. It's so natural that it is something that's just automated within me. And I don't naturally get 10,000 steps. I naturally get about 7,000 to 8,000 though. And so then intentionally I choose to do something to get that extra little bit. But it's not uncommon for me to look down and check my watch at the end of the day and go, oh, I did 12. Because I just chose that. I chose that action intentionally for so long that now I don't have to think about it. I get made fun of because this thing goes with me everywhere. I've had many water bottles through the years. At one point, one of my youth kids called me water bottle girl because sometimes I even show up to like youth with like a water bottle and a smoothie and a cup of tea. And so that was another thing I had to do. I had to learn how to become hydrated because I was not hydrated. And I had to intentionally choose actions through the day to drink more water. And I had apps that would go off and tell me to drink water. And I'd have like a space I would check it and, like track how much water I was drinking until I don't have to think about it anymore. It's just a part of who I am to the point that I'm water bottle girl, right? So we have the ability to build good things within us, but it starts with being intentional today. The good news is, guys, is that you can change. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You don't need something big to happen. We just have to start small. You build habits, whether you're aware of it or not, okay? You build habits about how you get ready for bed, how you wake up from bed, what kind of food you eat, where you go, how you use your phone, how you dress, how you take care of yourself. You have these habits all day long that you're engaging in, whether you're aware of it or not. So you have the ability to do this. But now it's choosing to do this intentionally, to hijack this and to use it to our advantage by choosing what is going to be automatic in our life. Since we're already doing it, let's do it well. So here's how we do it well, okay? I have several very practical tips for you guys. Step 1 is to start small. We cannot make this such a big to-do that it doesn't end up happening, okay? It's about consistency, not intensity. Me starting out with 10,000 steps was actually too much. I had to pare that back at the beginning because I was just so inactive that was so much of a stretch. And it was so much of a stretch that I wasn't able to bridge that gap. It took time. And so I had to pare it down to like 7,000. And when that became more natural, then I grew that. But we have to start it small. Consistency over intensity. Okay, if I have a plant, I do have plants. You guys can't see these guys, but I have plants back here, okay? They're in the windowsill getting sun. If I have a plant, it's about consistency for it to grow. I do not walk in and take a big jug of water and just drench my plant and go, cool, I'll be back in a month. Right? Like every day I go and I check on that plant and I give it a little bit of water and I give it a little bit of water and I give it a little bit of water, right? It's small little consistencies that help it to grow. It's not about perfection or intensity. Okay, if we make it too intense, it will not root. A good example too would be if you are starting to grow a plant, there's actually such a thing as putting it in too big of a space, too big of a pot. It won't grow as well. But if you put it in a smaller pot, then it can grow its root system and develop quite well through that pot and get all the nutrients and water because it's the right size. And as that plant grows and as it, gets too big, then you put it into another slightly bigger pot. But if we make it too big at first, it will not root. The Lord had spoken to me about me being aware of my habits and not making them too big to start. He says I have to let them root before I try to scale them up. It has to be normal and a natural part of my life before I'm trying to make it crazy. So here's a good example, okay? So I'm just trying to get into shape. And so for me to say I'm going to work out 1 hour every single day, 5 to 6 days a week was unnatural. That was not going to happen, okay? I was a couch potato. I had just finished my online college degree. I was very sedentary. And so I'm already walking, which is a new thing. But then to exercise that much every single day, my body couldn't even handle that, right? It would burn out. My muscles would need time to rest and recuperate. My body has to adapt to the change. So you have to give yourself grace for that time period of adapting to a new thing. There is such a thing as going cold turkey sometimes, but also there's a way to do it that isn't going to set yourself up for failure. If I wake up every day at 9 a.m., then maybe jumping right to 6 might be a stretch. But I can ease that back for a few weeks and let my body have time to adapt. So start small. Make it so easy that there's no way you can't accomplish it. You want to read more? Don't tell yourself you're going to read the whole Bible this month. Say, I'm going to read 1 page, 1 chapter. Right? That's so easy that you're almost like, okay, what's the point? The point is you allow it to root into your life. You allow it to have strong roots so that it's not going to be so easily shaken or plucked out because it's too much force on it to start. And we start slow. Okay? Start small, start slow. Once again, it's not about intensity. It's not about getting somewhere right now. It's about letting it have time to grow in your life. Start with 1. Okay, it's so tempting to say, okay, I want to get healthy. So let me walk 10,000 steps. Let me work out an hour every day. Let me drink, 1.5 gallons of water every day. Let me measure all my food out. Let me wake up 3 hours earlier than I normally wake up. And do not do that, guys. You will burn out. And I've made myself burn out from that as well. There have been many times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to start the new year. I want to do this. Okay, that's a lot. Reality is, of those 10 things, 2 kind of stuck, at least to start. And 3 months later, I'd look back at my list and I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't do all those things yet. I guess I need to start trying to implement, the 8 other ones now. And what would happen, right? Those 2 that stuck, they became rooted. But trying to do the 8 others, well, maybe 1 or 2 more kind of stuck. We just end up setting ourselves up to fail. And then we feel discouraged because we feel like, I suck. That's not true, because you did root good habits. Some of those did stick, just not all of them, because that's too many, okay? Again, if we're talking about growing plants, if I wanted to grow a garden, I would not do well if I planted a whole entire garden all at once, okay? I would get overwhelmed, because first off, it's not even part of my life to take care of that garden, but also that's a lot to look over all at once, and all of them require different care, right? And your habits require different care. There are different things you have to do that make things differently. And then this happens in life and that happens and actually you get sick. And don't set yourself up to fail, guys. Set yourself up to succeed. Do 1. Start with 1. Give it time to root and to grow until it is so easy you don't have to think about it. It's a lot easier for me to start a new habit at this point because drinking water is so ingrained in me, because moving and getting my steps is so natural. They're not the things that I have to worry about, and it takes up all this mental space. It just happens. And so once that happens, it's okay, I can, let me start a new habit. How about I start with now reading my Bible 1 page a day? Don't skip it. Life happens, guys. All right. Absolutely. Life happens. You do get sick. Life gets crazy. There's grace for that. Okay. We're not being legalistic here, but we are being intentional. And so to be intentional, don't let it go more than 2 days. There's all these things about don't break the chain and, don't allow a habit. If you're filling it in on a bubble chart, you don't want to see that space in the middle. But if it should happen, don't let a space come after that. If you miss a day, don't throw yourself off the bandwagon and say, well, I suck and I should give up. But don't do that. Just go back to it the next day and reinforce it again. All right. If I forget to water my plants one day, that's fine. You know what? They're still alive. But if I just go, oh, I suck at this and I should just give up, well, I'm not going to keep going back and watering them. They're not going to live for very long, are they? So don't skip. Water your plant every day. Also, check on it. I really do encourage you guys to track it in some sort of way, whether it's on your phone, on an app, whether it is a bubble chart you fill in. That's kind of nice because you get to see it. Whether it's, sticky notes that you put up or take down to kind of show your progress. It's very encouraging, first off, to see that you're doing it. But also it helps you to keep track so that you're not missing it as well. Once again, talking about plants, I check in with my plants. Are they doing okay? Do they need some more water? Do they need a little bit less water? Do they need a little pruned? We have to check in and go, how is this habit doing? Is it actually rooting? You know what I've noticed? I've noticed that I'm more likely to do this in the afternoon than the morning like I thought, so let me adjust. Or I'm really thrown off on Sundays because Sundays are busy with church and going out to dinner and all that. And so, I might have to adjust this. I might have to scale it around my day, not so that I'm, losing it, but so that I can keep it. It might be that 10,000 steps on Sunday is too much, but you know what? 8,000 is still better than not trying. Celebrate those small wins, guys. Reflect on the patterns, celebrate. It's so encouraging as you track these things to go, wow, I'm really doing that, aren't I? Don't compare your progress with anyone else. We're all on different journeys. We're all on different parts of our journey. I said it to one of my youth kids like this once. You are comparing yourself to this other girl. And it's like you guys think you're playing Monopoly on the same board. But in reality, you guys are playing two totally different games. You think that you've both started at Go at the same time, but that's not the case. In reality, she's over there playing Monopoly and we're playing checkers. We can't look and see what other people have done or are doing and then compare ourselves to that. The only thing that we need to be aware of is what is the Lord calling me to do and have I been faithful to that? That's what I'm responsible for. That's my part of the task. And so don't listen to me and go, wow, I wish I could be drinking all this water and getting 10,000 steps and all that. That's not where the Lord has you. So do not be discouraged. Do not allow room for comparison to come in and to be poison to what you're trying to grow in your life, okay? There are other practical tools and tricks for habit building and growing, and maybe that's something we could talk about another day. There's stuff like temptation bundling and making sure we have keystone habits, and we're gonna actually talk about that as well. Guys, I might need to make this into 2 parts. I saw a YouTuber who had a sweater or like a jacket on and it said professional yapper. And I would not consider myself a YouTuber at this point, even though my husband keeps joking with me. We're like, oh, Miss YouTuber, gonna go record a video. Anyway, but I am a professional yapper, unfortunately. I do talk a lot and I just get really excited to teach, honestly. And I have so much to say. I have so much I want to give you guys to help you guys out, but I'm just afraid that it might be too much for this video. And so I think I'm going to give you guys an adieu for now and tell you to come back for part 2. Because I really want you to get this. I really feel like this is important and from the Lord. And so I don't want to totally just cut it off. And I don't want to cut out things that I think are important either. And so come back for part 2. If you've liked this video, then please go ahead and actually like it down below. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments, maybe something that stood out to you, maybe something you've learned already, or maybe a habit that you're looking to intentionally create in your life. I'd love to hear about that. If you are not already subscribed, please subscribe, join our community as we continue to grow together in the good things that Jesus has for us, and we can encourage each other on our intentional journeys with the Lord. So thanks for tuning in for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video.